Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Thriving Relationship Show. I am your host, Christine Eartheart, founder of the Center for Thriving Relationships. And I am so grateful and excited to have you here and to get to support you in experiencing more love, connection, joy, and understanding in your relationship. And if you are someone who identifies as a woman, and you have ever dimmed your light or your power, if you've ever felt shame about your body or your sexuality, if you have dismissed, ignored, rejected, or overrode your pleasure, you are in for a spectacular treat because we have with us today a legend, an icon, a revolutionary when it comes to supporting women in reclaiming our power and our fully expressed selves. And so this episode is for anyone who identifies as a woman, as well as for anyone who loves and cares about them, or if you're in relationships with them. So I am so honored to introduce you all to Regena Thomashauer, the one and only Mama Gena. She is a teacher, mother, media personality, founder and CEO of the globally renowned School of Womanly Arts, and the New York Times bestselling author of the revolutionary book, Pussy, a Reclamation. She believes that women are the greatest untapped natural resource on the planet, and she teaches them to turn on their innate feminine power to create a life they love. Regena's approach stems from decades of research in the social, cultural, and economic history of women, and she has been recognized widely as a leading expert in modern feminism. She has been featured on Elle, Glamour magazine, Newsweek, TEDx 2020, and countless other media outlets. In her classroom and through her books, she shifts the way women hold their sexuality and identities, both individually and culturally. She creates communities of women who are so outrageously and wildly expressed that they are loving the world back to itself. Oh my goodness. Yes. Mama Gena, welcome. I am so grateful and just utterly delighted to be here with you. I just smile and feel more alive just thinking about you and whenever I see you. And I'm so grateful for your incredible contribution to the world.
Thank you, Christine. First of all, I'm so thrilled to be here. Congratulations on building the Thriving Relationships Show, your wellness center, all the work that you're doing on behalf of men and women in the world. And how did you encounter my work? How did we begin before we began?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked. So I just kept hearing this book, Pussy, in lots of women's circles I was in. It was getting passed around. Everyone's like, have you read it yet? And so it was, I think probably soon after it came out, and there was so much buzz. And now it is just stood the test of time. I can't even count how many clients and friends and loved ones I've recommended it to. And so my husband and I were like, oh, it is magnificent. I give it my highest, most enthusiastic recommendation. Wow. And so Brett, my husband and I were going on a road trip. And we're like, well, what a perfect book for the road trip. So we were just cruising down the highway, listening to you. And I was just the stories and the research and the true reclamation in there. And I highly recommend for, again, anyone who identifies as a woman, as well as people in relationship, to have that shared upgrade and update to how we perceive ourselves is life-changing. So that's where it began. And I've just loved following you and celebrating your work since.
I love that I went on a road trip with you and your husband. How fantastic. That is so great. That really warms my heart. It makes me so happy. And what a great man. What a great man that he just wants to know everything there is to know about pussy. Just wow to that.
I'm so grateful. And our son, who is now 25, he has also read and listened to your work. So yes, we need more and more in the world who are waking up to what you have to share. So I'd love to hear, how about you? How did you get into this work? How did this calling unfold for you?
Well, I think like all really, really good stories, it started with rupture. It started with some really big challenges that I was facing. When I was a child, I experienced abuse at the hands of a family member. Now, this is not only my story. This is a story of so many women. And it is a time, when I teach, I started with 12 women in my living room, but I teach, when I teach now, it's, hundreds or thousands of women. And I always ask the same question. I'm like, who here, before they got in this room, experienced either physical abuse, um, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, some kind of violence? And 99% of the women stand up. And it's my belief that the 1% that didn't stand, they just don't remember. Because there is no woman that gets to her teens and 20s and 30s without having encountered some consequence of living inside of a patriarchal world culture that does not know how to honor or appreciate or revere the feminine. And certainly that was the case in my home. So I didn't realize like how that impacted me, what the consequences of that were. So when I grew up, graduated college, went off to become an actress in New York City, instead of being able to like boldly show my talent and gifts, I kind of felt such a shrinking and a lack of confidence and a lot of depression. I felt suicidal. I felt like I couldn't connect with my friends or family. I felt so unworthy. And really, that is where my story began. It started with that sense of heartache and heartbreak from my childhood. And so I began to, I just wanted to be free. And as much therapy and different, courses that I took, nothing really was touching that part of my feminine that wanted to come to life. And it wasn't until I encountered pleasure that my whole life changed. It was as if, like, literally, you see those Christmas lights? It was like somebody just flipped the switch on the whole Christmas tree, and my whole system lit in a way that had never been alive before. And so I recognized it was pleasure was connecting me to my sense of myself, my sense of my power, my sense of my own aliveness, my connection to my passion, all the things that had gone dead, that even great therapists could not help or to awaken. It was pleasure, was that Christmas plug-in circuitry that lit me back up and brought me home to myself and really connected me to my divinity in a way that I had always been searching for, but never truly connected. Because the patriarchal spiritual traditions are usually, they're about right and wrong. If you sin, you have to redeem yourself. And that's not what the goddess is about. The goddess is about the sacred in everything, the sacred in your tears, the sacred in your laughter, the sacred in the way you prepare dinner for your children, the sacred in everything. And so when I learned that, I realized like, wow, the sacred exists in pleasure, the sacred exists in sensuality, the sacred exists, well, in my darkness and my light. And so it was just such a revelation connecting to my pussy. It was a revelation. And as soon as that happened for me, I was like, that's my job. I just gotta like tell everyone. I have to bring women back to themselves. It was like became a mission. I was like mission driven. I was like the Mother Teresa of pussy. I hit the fucking road and I was like, I gotta start a school. I have to do something because women do not know this. Women don't know that they're divine. We don't know that we're sacred. We don't know that we're holy. We don't know. And I knew that if I started with women, that women would then educate their men. Women would bring their men along, and it would be, it would be my access to turning on the world, which was my goal. because I think there's so many harsh consequences when we're turned off. We're turned off to love, we're turned off to connection, we're turned off to the brotherhood and the sisterhood in this world, like being turned off. And when we're turned on, all of that aliveness and all of that pleasure just instills itself in every fiber of our being, and we're utterly and completely different. Even
Woo!
here in the dead of winter in Brooklyn.
It's so perfect that you have that Christmas tree behind you. What a glorious analogy. It really worked out well. And I see it. There is like light beaming through you. You are such a perfect representative and ambassador of this work. So thank you so much for the deeply healing element of this, and just sending love to everyone tuning in who has experienced
thank you.
Some deep pain, trauma, and you are not alone. Clearly, I so appreciate when people share things like that for people to recognize, in case they're in communities where these things aren't talked about, to realize like you are not alone whatsoever. And I love when you talk about the sacred feminine and how it is an invitation for us to really embrace how pleasure can be the most healing thing. Like, it doesn't mean that we have to suffer even more to heal our pain and suffering. And so when you talk about pleasure and all the benefits that come from being turned on in life, for those that are wondering, okay, so pleasure, there's something to pleasure. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, it's a universal question because, let's say when I go on, different TV shows or go to speak, everybody is so afraid that I'm going to just like right in there blazing a trail and talking about sex and how people should fuck all the time, which is not a bad idea. I'm not opposed to that, but it's not what I'm about. Pleasure is a portal. Pleasure is a way that, especially women, right? We're gifted with 8,000 nerve endings dedicated to pleasure. And that means if 8,000 of our thoughts every day are not about pleasure, 8,000 of our dreams, 8,000 of our desires, we're not living the design of what it means to be a woman. And so, you can be celibate and have exquisite pleasure. You can have pleasure from reading a Mary Oliver poem, reading Emily Dickinson, Elizabeth Barrett Browning. You can read Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. You can get lit up on Shakespeare. You can I went to dinner last night with my guy. Like, we were so in love. We had this like trumpet mushroom appetizer with roasted cabbage topped with like chicory and a little Parmesan. And we just took our time with that and we ate it with our fingers. And like, the restaurant tried to rush us and they brought us our entrees. But you're like, no, take them back. We are just going to savor this. So it's just going to dinner. It was really pleasurable. Trumpet mushrooms,
Oh, that sounds so yummy. So this expansive notion of pleasure. Yeah, keep going.
Well, I just wanted to say, it's not simple. As you know, Christine, it's pleasure. It's a practice. Pleasure is a discipline. And let's say if someone had come to me when I was in my 20s and so lost, and I didn't know that I was experiencing the consequence of the abuse patterns in my family. I didn't know all the wounding and how it shut me down. And if someone then had said, hey, let's go have a pleasurable experience, I would have been like, fuck you, like, ew, like, I can't, like, ew. Like, no part of me would have been open to that. And so when we go through periods of our lives when we're depressed, disenfranchised, in a state of disapproval of ourselves or others, in deep devastation, through losses that one experiences in life, like those moments, it is so hard to reach for pleasure or even remember that pleasure exists. And that's where I think sisterhood is so very important, because when we lose our way, a sister can bring us back to ourselves, not fix us, but just remind us of a larger truth, which is, just like that it is a gift to be alive and to feel deeply. And sometimes it's just finding the pleasure in the well of grief that you're experiencing and making space for that. So that's why I say pleasure is a paradigm, pleasure is a discipline, pleasure is a portal, pleasure is a choice, because we can always choose it, but you have to take that step to reconnect with your pleasure, especially if it's been a long time. And I know you have girlfriends that have like, huge and beautiful and robust pleasure vocabulary. And I know that you have girlfriends that are just stuck as fuck and just not in a place, where they just seem like adrift or disconnected from their bodies and themselves. And, we can see it in women. When a woman is connected to her pleasure, she's lit from within. And when she's disconnected, it's kind of like the lights have gone out. So it's not easy. It's kind of the last thing in the world you want to do when you're not feeling it, but it is the single best move. It's actually an economy of time, because if you try to fix your problems, you never will. Go for pleasure. And then immediately you're so elevated. You're like, oh yeah, I'm going to handle that. That's no big deal. I can handle that. No problem.
It's so good. I love what you're saying. And it sounds like it's bringing this intention of pleasure to even ordinary moments, like having a meal could just be like going through the motions, or like, just allowing ourselves to fully receive, which is so big for women, such a stretch for women. And so that's so wonderful. So partnered or not, of course, pleasure is available for us, and just throughout our everyday lives. And I also so appreciate you saying, just in our communities and sisterhood, that it can be so permission giving and so contagious too. And we see other women opening to pleasure and cheering on our own pleasure, because, I found a lot, and, I can relate to this, is like, oh, but I need to serve other people, and it feeling selfish. And, so when we create a cultural shift, in our community. So can you speak to that? Because that is so common that it's like, oh, but I need to get this done first, or I need to. Yes.
It's the worst. It's especially rough, I think, on moms. It's like especially rough on working moms, because like our obligations are real. They're true. You have to get shit done. You have to get your kid handled, lunchbox packed, put him or her to bed, homework, after school activities, assembly. I mean, I can remember, when I was a single mom, and her dad was not present in her daily life. And I can remember literally like going to an assembly, waiting till her class did the thing, then running into the hall to run a business meeting, to come back in there to it's super, our lives can be supercharged and super stressful. And at the same time, it's still no excuse not to have pleasure. Is no excuse. You can do like, I put on this pink shirt today, but I have this little hot bra underneath, no one knows. Well, now you do. But like no one needs to know. But I just love this thing. I love like the little bondage element. It's just like, it's like fun and strappy, and it puts me in a mood. So imagine if I'm that mom running to the meeting. I have my little bondage bra. Maybe I'm wearing no panties. Maybe I have made in my thermos my favorite Bengal spice tea with what is that? Nut Pods almond creamer. So good. So that even though I'm running into the assembly, I have my tea. I have my little thermos. I've taken a moment to care for me. And that is huge when we do that as women. It is huge, and it's a game changer. And it only takes the power of thought takes a little planning, the power of thought to choose ourselves first. And it's one hack that I love to give my mothers, like, because we so often are in that caretaker mode. We have to take care of our husbands, our girlfriends, our boyfriends, our kids, our parents, our family. But like, how do you start to train the world around you to take care of you? Like that. So I'll teach. There was a mom that I was coaching with yesterday, because I have a really tiny practice of one-on-one coaching. And I taught her how to have her sons, she has 3, draw her a bath when she gets home from work.
Oh,
Like, we just like broke down all the elements, the music, the Epsom salts. She's not really a wine drinker, but she loves Pellegrino or soda, club soda, with a fresh squeeze of lime. And then her favorite, whatever novel she's reading, to be placed at the tub's edge. And then to give the boys, the Uber Eats or whatever, so she doesn't have to cook every single night, or the pizza, or taking the time to teach them how to make the mac and cheese and the crudité, so they have a semi-adequate dinner. Just like working it out so that she has someone, in this case me, but it could be any girlfriend, standing for another girlfriend's pleasurable expansion. Because we all need women to do that. We all need. I'm always about that. Like, and I'm always taking risks and finding new ways to open doorways. Because if we don't expand our pleasure, our world shrinks. And let's say that one more time. If we as women do not expand our pleasure, our world shrinks. And we don't need a partner to have our pleasure expand. We need our attention on pleasure, which once again is a bitch, queen, is a bitch. To have your attention on pleasure, it takes work. It's so worth it. What are some ways that you really tend to and care for your pleasure in your life? How do you pay attention to that sacred part of you?
thank you so much for asking. I just appreciate so deeply what you're saying, and people getting creative and resourceful, and how it's really about prioritizing this, and then like solutions open up. I love the story of the mom teaching her sons, and I'm celebrating their future partners and how grateful they'll be. So
Exactly.
Yes, we're truly like, this is where it's what a gift to her and what a gift to them to get to support her and have her even more nourished, and then their future partners. Like, it is good for the world.
Can you imagine those girls they're going to date one day, when they say to the girls like, "Oh, here, why don't I give you a massage? Why don't I draw you a bath?" She's going to flip the fuck out. He's going to be the most popular boy in high school. It's going to be effective.
Well, I love having so many things. I love color. If you could see around here, and having things around me that bring me joy to look, whether it's like, just things that feel delicious. So color is huge. I love spending time out in nature. We just actually purchased acreage behind us, and so my husband and I were like, let's go to tree church this morning, and snuggling up with the pups and being in sisterhood and just taking moments. But a practice of mine is like taking those sacred pauses throughout the day. Like, it's like, I love what you are such an advocate for, is it doesn't have to take much time. It's like taking 5 minutes, even 2 minutes, like lay outstretched on the earth and just give thanks and breathe and plug into like the life socket of the universe. And my altar, I love spending time and my practice. And I'm so grateful for practices and amazing, brilliant luminaries like you, because it has so deeply inspired me to prioritize play and joy and pleasure in my own life. So
good. Are there any areas, if there's any areas of your life that you need a pleasure upgrade, I am so down to do that. It always helps people if there's, and there may not be, but I just love to get in there and be of service.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Pleasure
Yay.
upgrade.
Good. So where do you need like a pleasure upgrade? And we're going to brainstorm together. We're going to pussy storm.
Okay, so I would say definitely like sometimes when I'm when I'm in work mode,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes I'll override my body, like wanting to rest. Like I want to keep going, even though like stepping outside. I mean, it's a practice. So there are moments that I do that and other moments where I just
Yeah.
override. My body's like,
Yeah.
oh, I want to do that.
And
Oh, but
does
I have to
that,
get done.
how does that play out with your man? Like, do you ever like with that, really your excellent work ethic? I praise you for that. Does it ever does it ever spill over so you're like coming at him with the list or like, you know, the like you still feel like you're manning up instead of womaning up in your connection with him?
Oh, sure. Sure. I mean, thankfully, it's these things are always evolving. So I'm so grateful for how we've
Always,
grown. That
always,
is absolutely where I would lean
always.
into is having the list and in those moments prioritizing what needs to get done rather than like, oh, let's just be in pure pleasure mode. So without a
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah. What I do in moments like that with my guy, I just did it this morning, like, is I have a huge lingerie collection.
Of course you
And
do.
by the way, Christine, for your listeners, huge lingerie collections can be acquired for not much money on certain websites. Like I have gotten some beautiful, inexpensive pieces on a website called Yandy. And then I've splurged and gotten some beautiful pieces on a website called uh, Agent Provocateur, and lots of them in between. But I love to collect lingerie. Why? Not so much because it turns on the man in my world or the men in my life, but because it turns me on. Like,
So
so
important.
this morning we had a date, and I just was like, because we whatever I bragged that we had a tremendous amount of sex yesterday, and so I was thinking more. How can I possibly do that? How can I do that? So I was just like, okay, shit, I'll just put on this little blue teddy and roll in there and see what happens. So what I have to do is I have to prepare me. And there's lots of ways to prepare myself with, and why am I doing this? And why am I articulating this and suggesting this, not just for you, for me, but for the listeners? Um, we never want pleasure. We always want to choose work. We want to cross things off the to-do list. We want to feel like because that's what our culture honors. Our culture honors how hard we can work, how productive we are. You know, uh, we aren't honored for taking a nap. Although most women, I would say, like if a woman tells me that she has taken a nap today, I just want to honor the fuck out of her because wow, that is tremendous self care. Or further still, if she has pleasured herself in any way, I am in awe of her. I'm on my knees in front of her because it's not easy in this world to choose pleasure. So let's say I just have like an inner thing where whenever I get invited into a sensual opportunity, my answer is always yes, even when I have too much to do, even when I don't feel like it, even when I feel like I really can't. Like I always say yes. Why? Because it's always a smart idea to choose pleasure. And it always requires like a little bit of a whereas, because if I woke you up at 3 a.m. and I was like, Christine, I need a blood transfusion. You're the only person that matches me. Can you come to the hospital right away? What would you say?
Yes, I'll be right there. Yeah.
Okay. And conversely, if I woke you up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I was like, Christine, like there's this really banging party going on in New York City. Can you get on a plane? You'd be like, Mama Gena, we just met on a podcast. Like, why are you bothering me at 3 a.m.? That is crazy. Can you give me a little advance warning? We don't have the same value system around pleasure as we do around work. So, learning how to create little incremental reasons to say yes to pleasure is worthy. And it could be something simple like expanding your lingerie collection. So when your partner of, I don't know, 5 months, 5 years, 25 years is inviting you, you can find more frequencies of yes, because you're learning what and how to turn yourself on, because turning yourself on brings it turns on all your neurotransmitters, including beta endorphin, prolactin, serotonin. It lights you up, and suddenly you become not just a saner, hotter, better you, but kinder, gentler, and more loving you, which working hard will never deliver to you. Never, ever, ever deliver to you. Never, ever, ever, never. So it's kind of like you're serving the world by serving your pleasure, which is good. We want to serve the world. And if you can serve it with pleasure, it's really damn good.
It's like the best deal. Yeah, I really appreciate you speaking to that it's not easy. Because you would think like, oh, well, pleasure is the easiest thing. And that's like the easy way out. But oh my goodness, when there are so many, imprints along the journey that have reinforced, working hard. And of course, there's a part of that can be wonderful. It's just so out of balance.
Yeah.
I think for so many. And so I really appreciate you just suggesting it can just be these little steps of like in the moment, those choice points, like choose a more pleasurable thing and what it does for us, all the benefits. And so in our relationship, so it's incredible for us. You've spoken about confidence and feeling more alive and more in our body, so many things. And how does, as a woman begins to just deepen her commitment to everyday pleasure in all of its forms, what are some more of and that we have 8,000 nerve endings dedicated to pleasure. So you've already shared some of them. And I think it's so important to hear, like, just tell us more about the benefits to ourselves, to others. Like, why does it just matter so much for ourselves in the world that we prioritize pleasure?
It truly is, taking care of yourself is taking care of the world. And there are so many women running on empty right now. And we can't, here's the thing, Christine. Women, I hope it's okay. I've said fuck a bunch of times, but it's just like one of my favorite words. Okay. It's like women in this world, like we're at, like we've progressed, right? We've gotten to #MeToo. There's more to go, right? We can go further. There are next steps in our evolution as women. But right now, women feel comfortable talking about their pain and their victimization and the kinds of, and that is a huge step. It's like we've broken through the kind of veil of silence, and now we are sharing those kinds of experiences, which is great, because like when you break out of numb, the first place you go is pain, and then pleasure are the next, different experiences of pleasure are the next steps to come. But women right now are angry. We are pissed. We're angry, and this anger is definitely in many cases pointed at the masculine or the men in our lives. When we are making approximately 70 cents to the dollar that men are making, like there's reasons. I personally get angry at how much I spend on haircuts versus men spend like $10. It's just, it's crazy. But here's the thing, that anger will never lead anywhere you want to be. It will never lead to your own personal fulfillment. It will never lead to deeper connection. It will never lead to more passion. It will never lead to, being like just overflowing with abundance, happiness, joy, love. It leads nowhere good. So we as women right now, we are at a choice point. You can either choose pleasure or you can choose anger. Pleasure or anger. My guy, I didn't think he kept in good communication with me this week. So I was really pissed at him when we got together, but I guess the night before last. And I was proud of myself that I didn't yell at him. Instead, I showed him how I was hurt. But nevertheless, I didn't want to dwell there. I didn't want to stay in that place. I wanted to be able to melt into our connection. And as women, as in this culture, we are so used to humping the butt of, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, you disappointed me. And all those things, they are true. And yet they don't lead. Audre Lorde so rightly said, you cannot dismantle the master's house with the master's tools. You cannot fight anger with anger. You cannot meet hatred with hatred. You can only meet those things with pleasure, with love.
Yeah.
Pleasure infused love. So that
beautiful.
it's really necessary for us to learn this vocabulary as women. We have to. Otherwise, our lives going to be like small. We're going to be small, disappointed, ungratified, cranky as fuck. And when women are angry, they can torch a small village. Everyone is coming down. We can do that. We're pissed. We're like, okay, I am going to make you all suffer because you have made me mad. And we can't afford to spread that virulent anger condition anymore. We have to change the game. And when a woman can learn to celebrate herself and choose pleasure and figure out what the fuck actually pleasures her, what brings her pleasure. Like even these silly glasses, I just had to get them because they're pink. Pink is my favorite color. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm getting a new pair of glasses. But, it's just a small thing, but it brings pleasure instead of, something practical or not food for my soul. So it's kind of like my message to women is figure out the recipe of food for your soul. Don't keep it to yourself. Tell everyone. Tell your girlfriends, tell your lovers, tell the children around you, tell your parents, tell everyone you know the recipe that's food for your soul, because then the quality of your life will start to shift and you will get so much more of everything that you long for, deserve, and desire.
That is just such incredible wisdom and such a powerful, loving recommendation to learn just the recipe for each of us, our own unique recipe for our own soul, and then to share that. Oh, and I love how your glasses have just been delighting me. They're so beautiful. And when you talked about how pleasure expands what's possible, it's like, I feel
you're right.
that thing, what delights you. I'm like, well, yes, of course we can wear pink glasses. And so I feel the expanse in that. It's like in the energy field is more is available and possible. So,
and you're right, because women, because we have 8,000 nerve endings dedicated to pleasure with our clitoris, we are so susceptible about pleasure. We don't even have to have a pleasurable experience to feel pleasure. We can just get off on each other's pleasurable experience.
Totally.
Like you tell me about like that, your beautiful home, the walk in the woods. I'm like, yes, that's hot. See, let's do it. Great.
So let's talk about pussy. So you are someone who has I think you are at the forefront. You are the trailblazer, utilizing this word, empowering women to reclaim this word.
Mm-hmm.
Why the word pussy? So people like, because of course it's a word that can feel demeaning or often it's so emotionally charged for so many people. And I get it. Even when I saw it, I was like, oh, well, okay. Let me open up to seeing this word in a whole new way, which you gave me a whole education on that. And I think it's such an important thing for people to learn about. So why the word pussy? Tell us about it.
I think the word pussy started because like when I was teaching women, it's like a big thing, as I'm an educator in the field of women's sex and sensuality. What's the term? What's the word? And I would actually ask women when they came to our class, I'd be like, what did your female bits get called when you were growing up? And I collected the most outrageous. I have a list of like thousands of words. First of all, more than half of the women, the word was nothing. There was no name for that which is the heartbeat of their feminine source, their feminine energy, their feminine body. There was no word. And then the others, a lot of them had like little cute names like Coochie, Knish, Muffin, Walter Winchell, believe it or not, Kitty, Front Bottom, Peach, No Name. It just endless terms for this body part. And it had me like recognize some kind of shit is going on, that we are being kept from the name and address of the heartbeat of our feminine wisdom. Like, that's profound that there's no word, because you need a word, right? Like, if we didn't have the word internet, how would you explain to someone what's going on? Like, you'd be like, well, there's like this invisible force. It's kind of like waves moving through the air, but it kind of goes into our computers, and then it like spits out of our computers, and it can go all the way around the world in just like a few seconds. Like, it would be really confusing, and a lot of people would have better definitions than me, but there was no word, so I got really curious about that. And then a lot of people wanted me to use the word vagina, which is just plain wrong because it's the interior portion of female genitalia that you can't even see except in your gynecologist's office if you have him hold up a mirror while he puts a speculum inside you. And then there was vulva, which is the correct terminology, clitoris, vulva. But it was just like kind of flat. And then there's yoni. There's like the yoni people. And the yoni people, like, I don't want to teach my kids like Sanskrit. Why would I call her hand a hand and her vulva a yoni? Like, that makes zero sense whatsoever. So I just, and then what happened was, as women were describing their body parts, I started to notice that whenever a woman would use the word pussy, it would unleash the fuck out of her. Like, it would just unleash her. She would just start laughing. And she'd be like, yeah, my pussy's talking to me. And I'd be like, wow, she is thrilled. And I recognize that when a woman says pussy, it's very different when a misogynistic man says pussy. That is not a happy moment. But when a woman says pussy, wow, she's reclaiming her sensual power immediately. And it's also a little bit shocking. But here's the thing. Women love to be outrageous. Even the most shy women love a little outrageous. And so I was scared when I put the word pussy on the front of my book cover. I thought, oh my God, my publisher will never, ever go for this. I will get attacked in the press. I will be vilified. And none of that happened, actually. Pussy was a word whose time had come. It also helped me that it was right around the time when our former president was running around, saying, grab him by the pussy. And people were making T-shirts that said that. So there's a way in which that man was of great service to me.
Wow. Well, thanks for being brave with your calling and us getting to know this part of us. I know you talk about the 5 stages of someone beginning to develop a relationship with our own pussy. So can you name what those are? Because, right, it's like even the word, not having a word for this vital part of who we are. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, actually, I'm always changing the 5 stages as I encounter more women with different relationships with their pussies. But I think the first stage is terror. The terror stage where you're just like, "Oh, we're not supposed to talk about that, Christine." Like, I'm from a very long line of either Catholics or Mormons or, fundamentalist Christians or Baptist, whatever, Orthodox Jews. I can't, Muslim. I cannot. I'm no. Or women that are actually terrified of their actual pussies, because they think, whoa, that's just like some kind of, like, that's scary. Somebody's going to rape me or attack me or want to take something from me. It's like, so there's terror. And then the second stage is like when a woman actually takes the hand mirror and she looks at her pussy, or begins to actually investigate. She can often feel revulsion because there's and it's not her. It's a culture that reviles the feminine and demeans and diminishes and pornographies, if there is such a word, the feminine. So she doesn't know that she's beautiful. So when she sees herself, she feels like, ooh, I don't know, there's hair, there's folds, there's colors. So many women have never taken a hand mirror to even enjoy their majesty and magnificence. And then the third stage is, my puppy wants to say hi.
Yes, please.
The third stage is where a woman kind of puts on her researcher's cap. And she's like, oh, I see. Oh, all right, there's the clitoris, there's the outer labia, the inner labia, there's the introitus, the urethra. Okay, I'm getting it. All right. And then she goes to the stage of the affectionate researcher, where she's starting to get more and more familiar either with herself or other women. And she's like, oh, wow, look, the colorations can go from purples to browns to blacks to the most palest salmon pink, the most rosy, kind of dusty pink. Like, that's amazing. And then the final stage, which once a woman really takes on the study and the investigation of her body, she will hit a stage called rapture, where she's like, wow, my pussy is miraculous. My pussy feels so much pleasure. My pussy is beautiful. My pussy creates life. My pussy is a self-cleansing organism. My pussy is the source of the human and the divine connection. And so she just really starts to feel very differently once she's learned her way. And I think it's very important, especially for those of us who are moms, to make sure we open those pathways to rapture for both our sons and daughters. And we do that by opening the path to rapture ourselves. And when we do that, then we realign our whole relationship with our womanhood. And it's very important to do that because the culture makes us out of alignment.
Yeah.
And it's important to realign.
So gorgeous and so moving, you outlining the stages, because it shows what's really possible. Women that are in that fifth stage didn't just originate there. And so for anyone tuning in, wherever you are among those 5 stages, to really trust the process and keep nurturing your relationship with your own pussy, your own sensuality, pleasure, and emotions and power as a woman. So, and you outline stages so exquisitely. So this is the Thriving Relationships show. So I love asking people what a thriving relationship is to you. And I have a second part for people tuning in that maybe feel like they've kind of lost the spark. Any insights around how to really reconnect to that part of themselves and each other? So what is a thriving relationship and how to keep the spark reignited and alive?
I would say a thriving relationship is a relationship that is based on truth. And it's always really scary because I think the thing that we're most fearful of is to lose love. And to lose loving connections. And so we don't always want to say the truth because I think if we say the truth, then that person will reject me, or they won't love me, or they won't be there for me, or I'll lose their love. And we don't want to lose love but then it puts us like at the table of love as a little beggar because we aren't able to live our fullness. And I'll give you an example of that, just in case this is a useful storyline for someone else that might be struggling in the way that I was. But I've had a partner for 5 years. We were engaged. And then when we were having some struggles where we couldn't really find a deep connection, and our sensual connection kind of went offline. And there were things that I was wanting from him that I couldn't find a way to inspire. And there's things he was wanting from me that he couldn't find a way to inspire. And then I met someone else and I kind of fell in love with that person. And we separated, but we had a super conscious disconnect. So we always stayed in touch with each other. And we still remained lovers and friends, but just not together. And then, of course, my relationship with the person that triggered our breakup ended. And then we started to reconnect and date again. And he's also dating other people. But this reconnection has been fire. It's been all the pieces. Like, he needed to go on his own for a while to grow as a man. I needed to crash and burn to grow as a woman. And so we're now like re-engaged. Like the ring he gave me again with our commitment to be re-engaged to the truth, the deepest truth for each other. So we're on an adventure. It's better than it's ever been. I don't know where it's going, but that's why I love the truth so much, because it was so risky for both of us to give up what we had. But if we hadn't, we would never have this unbelievably elevated, beautiful depth and breadth of love that we're currently experiencing. We took my mom to London to visit my daughter for Thanksgiving. And Sunday I'm going to his family's Christmas party. So each of these things that might have been a burden in our previous round, it's like we each recognize it as an act of devotion and love and depth of connection. And the way we hold each other. So I think risking truth is probably my greatest advice. At least it's worked for me, and I hope that it's useful for anyone hearing.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I am deeply happy and just thrilled to hear about you and your sweetie. And there's so much in there. It's so true. Any place where we're not sharing a part of who we are, it's like a place where vitality and connection, love can exist. So that your ultimate commitment was to really being your true selves and fully express selves. And it takes such trust and such courage, and that ultimately led you back to one another in an even more expansive, juicy way. That's a profound story, and there's so much in that. And just to commit and recommit and leaving space for each other to be all of who you are. So celebrating you too, and just wishing you infinite blessings on your union and journey of love ahead. And I have no doubt that will be a story of inspiration for so many wanting hope and to see what's possible and available. So for people that I have no doubt that are just so lit up about everything you're sharing, and they're like, oh, more, because this is really... it's an awakening, hearing. It's a paradigm shift. Like it fundamentally changes how people see themselves and others in their relationships. Where can they learn more about you and your work and what's like these days?
First of all, you can follow me on Instagram. I make incredible content on Instagram. It's Mama Gena. My website is www.mamagenas, MAMAGENAS.com. And why you want to go to my website? So that you get on my mailing list, because I do these amazing weekly blogs that are so powerful and so deep and so beautiful. And secondly, you can find out about different classes. Should anyone be interested in my classes, rock so hard. I'm just starting my very first pleasure coaching certification program for people that want to teach my work in the world. We have an amazing group of women to start with. We'll start in January. And then in the spring, I'm going to do my cornerstone course, which is called Virtual Pleasure Bootcamp. And that is for any woman who feels just a tiny little bit shredded, worn out, wanting to connect to her sensuality and her sexuality, feeling like a little bit like more like a raisin than a juicy grape. This is a way to just infuse every aspect of your life with your joy and your juice and your voice and your turn on and your aliveness. And it's a gorgeously organized program, 8 weeks, weekly calls with me and a group of support. And it's so much fun. So that's coming up. That's what the season looks like.
All right. We will put the links to all of that goodness below. And you just show up so wholeheartedly, and you really reflect what it means to be wholly embodied. Like your range, you are so loving and kind and caring and compassionate and so alive and radiant, and you're wild. Like you just, thank you for being it and modeling what's available. And
Christine, thank you
so much.
Takes one to know one. Takes one to know one, Christine. Takes one to know one. I thank you. What an honor to meet you and have a little glimpse of you and your life. And I'm so really grateful for the privilege of connecting to your community. And know and trust that no matter how you feel right now, you are gorgeous, you are fabulous, you are delicious, and you are incredible, and you are so worthy of pleasure. So grab some today.
Blessed be. What an invitation to everyone. Thank you with all my heart, Mama Gena, and everyone for tuning in and just elevating the pleasure and love and connection to oneself and everything and everyone around us. It really allows us, I think, to be stewards of this incredible gift of life and being in this body and being in this world at this time. Like you are inviting us to wake up to the magnificence of everything that's right here, right now. And so celebrating everyone tuning in, and thanks for being here for the greater good of all. So much love to you, Mama Gena, and to everyone. Thank you so much.
All right. Mwah. Big kiss.
Want more support for your relationship or want to become trained as a certified relationship coach to help other couples? We warmly